The steel mill pulsed with the low, steady hum of machines, the familiar scent of metal, sweat, and oil hanging heavy in the air. Geronimo Fields stood at the time clock, punching in on his Friday afternoon shift. As his eyes swept over the factory floor, a commotion caught his attention. It was a fight that was unfolding near the center of the floor. Two men, one a worker, the other a supervisor, were locked in a bitter struggle. The air around them stood still with the raw tension that had been simmering for weeks. Geronimo shook his head in frustration. "I don't need this today," he thought to himself. His mind raced as he bolted across the factory floor, weaving through clusters of workers who stood watching in disbelief. Ray, the supervisor, pointed angrily at his opponent, voice sharp with fury. "You're fired," he shouted, his hand shaking as if to punctuate the finality of his words. Tate, the worker, was a burly man with rough hands and a temper to match. His chest heaved with fury as he pointed back at Ray, his voice loud enough to cut through the ambient noise of the factory. "Stop playing with me, Ray. You think people don't see the shit you're pulling? I'll be back. You hear me? I'll be back." The surrounding workers, some laughing, some frowning, many with their cell phones held up, captured the altercation for social media and their co-workers who weren't present. Geronimo pushed through the crowd just as Tate lunged forward, his voice thick with rage. It took several workers to pull him away, their faces pale with the realization that the situation could have escalated even further. One of the older workers shook his head, eyes distant as if he'd seen this kind of scene play out too many times. "Now we're going to have to sit through another one of those goddamn safety meetings," he muttered, his voice dripping with frustration. "This company's got everyone so fed up. It's a wonder there haven't been more fights." Geronimo looked around, his own frustration building. He didn't need this today, not with the contract negotiations hanging over everyone like a dark cloud ready to burst. He turned to a nearby worker who stood with arms crossed, watching the chaos unfold. "What happened here?" Geronimo asked. The worker sighed, shaking his head as if trying to shake off the weight of everything happening. Tate lost it when he heard Ray was writing him up for attendance. They've been at each other's throats for months now, but with the contract expiring tonight, it's like they're pushing us over the edge. Geronimo nodded grimly. "Yeah, I think it's really gone too far this time." As the police arrived, the crowd parted to let them through. Tate was cuffed and led away, his angry shout still echoing in the air. Geronimo stood still for a moment, watching the scene unfold, a sinking feeling settling deep in his gut. Things were bad, and maybe worse than he had realized.